Raise your hand if you've ever stood in front of a stove, looked at a raw piece of meat, and thought, how did anyone figure this out? Yeah, same. But here's the truth. Ancient humans didn't discover cooking in a single flash of genius. They stumbled into it. Slowly. Accidentally. And the story of how they did it is actually simpler than you think. No divine spark. No caveman Einstein. Just observation, curiosity, and a lot of burnt fingers. And once you see the pattern, you'll realize cooking wasn't invented, it was discovered the same way you learn anything. By doing. Let's go back. Way back. About 2 million years ago. Early humans were walking around, eating raw meat, raw tubers, raw everything. And raw food takes a long time to chew. Like, hours. Modern chimpanzees spend 6 to 8 hours a day just chewing. Imagine that. Half your waking life, jaw moving, no flavor, just grinding. But early humans had smaller jaws and bigger brains. Something had to change. And that something was fire, but not at first. The first step wasn't cooking. It was meat. Early humans started eating more meat than their ancestors. Meat is calorie-dense. It gave them energy. But raw meat is also tough. Hard to digest. So they started smashing it with rocks. Tenderizing. Cutting it with sharp stones. That's a tool. That's already a form of processing food. But it's not cooking. That comes later. Now think about fire. Early humans didn't invent fire. Lightning strikes, volcanic eruptions, dry grass. They were terrified of it at first. And rightly so. But they saw animals running from it. They saw burnt landscapes. And eventually, they figured out how to keep it. Not start it, keep it. Carry a burning branch from a natural fire. Feed it. Protect it. That was the first big win. But here's the interesting part. Cooking wasn't the goal. Warmth was. Fire kept them warm. Scared off predators. Gave them light. The food part came later. Because someone, probably a kid, dropped a piece of meat into the embers. They fished it out, maybe to save it. And when they bit into it, it was different. Tender. Easier to chew. Easier to digest. That's the accident. That's the moment. Now, here's the reframe you've been waiting for. Most people think cooking was a eureka moment. But it wasn't. It was a slow dance. Step 1, observe fire. Step 2, keep it alive. Step 3, notice that food near it changes. Step 4, try it intentionally. Step 5, repeat. That's it. 5 steps, spread over thousands of years. But the pattern is the same for everything you learn. You don't master a skill overnight. You watch. You experiment. You fail. You try again. Cooking is just the oldest example of that. So let's break down how this actually worked. Because when you know the sequence, you see how simple it really is. First, early humans noticed that fire made the ground warmer. They started sleeping near it. Then they noticed that animals that had been caught in wildfires were easier to eat, the skin came off, the flesh peeled. That was the first clue. Then they started placing meat near the fire, not in it. Roasting on sticks. That's intentional cooking. That's step 3. But here's the kicker. They didn't cook everything. Some foods, like nuts and grains, they ate raw. But eventually they realized that heat made some plants edible that were poisonous raw. That's a huge leap. That's a technology. They learned to process toxins through heat. That expanded their food supply massively. And with more food came more brain power. The brain is an expensive organ, it uses 20% of your calories. Cooking unlocked those calories. It made digestion easier, so they didn't need to spend hours chewing. They spent that time thinking, talking, planning. That's the real story. Cooking didn't just feed them. It freed them. It gave them leisure time. And with leisure came tools, art, language, society. All from a piece of meat dropped in a fire. But here's the part they don't tell you in school. The invention of cooking wasn't about intelligence. It was about boredom. Early humans had a lot of time. They sat around fires at night. They watched sparks. They poked at things. That curiosity is what led to cooking. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's great for ancient humans, but what does this have to do with me? Everything. Because the same pattern applies to every skill you want to learn. You don't need to be a genius. You need to observe, experiment, repeat. That's the core. Cooking is a perfect model. You try a recipe. It burns. You adjust. You try again. Soon you're making it without thinking. That's learning. That's the human way. Let me give you a framework. Call it the 3 phases of fire. Phase 1, observation. You watch what happens naturally. Phase 2, experimentation. You try something small, drop a piece of meat, see what happens. Phase 3, repetition. You do it again and again until it becomes habit. That's how early humans learned to cook. That's how you learn to code, to speak a language, to get fit. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. It's not complicated. But here's the trap. Most people get stuck in Phase 1. They watch endless tutorials. They read books. They take notes. But they never drop the meat in the fire. They never try. Because they're afraid of burning it. Afraid of failure. But failure is the experiment. Burnt meat is data. It tells you what not to do next time. That's not a setback. That's progress. Here's the other thing. Early humans didn't have a teacher. No YouTube. No cookbook. They figured it out by trial and error. And they weren't smarter than you. They just weren't afraid to make mistakes. Because mistakes were their only teacher. So the next time you're learning something, stop waiting for perfect instructions. Start with a small, safe experiment. Write 1 bad paragraph. Do 1 bad push-up. Cook 1 burnt egg. That's your fire. Cooking also taught early humans about patience. You can't rush a roast. You can't hurry a stew. You have to wait. That's a discipline. And discipline is just delayed gratification in disguise. You learn to tolerate the wait because you know the payoff is bigger. Same with studying, working out, building a career. You put in the time, you wait, and the result comes. That's not magic. That's biology. But here's the surprising part. Cooking also transformed our social structure. Early humans started eating together around the fire. That created community. Sharing food created bonds. Trust. Cooperation. Cooking wasn't just a skill, it was the foundation of civilization. And that's the deeper lesson. What you learn isn't just for you. It connects you to others. You cook for your family. You teach someone your skill. That's how knowledge spreads. So let's bring it back to you. You have a fire. It might be a project, a hobby, a side hustle. You've been watching it from a distance. But here's the truth. You don't learn to cook by looking at the fire. You learn by putting something in it. So put something in. Make a small move today. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. Now. Because ready is a lie. It never comes. Early humans weren't ready. They were hungry. And that was enough. But I also want you to notice something else. When you make that small move, you're not just learning a skill. You're joining a long line of humans who figured things out by doing. 2 million years of trial and error. That's your heritage. You're not starting from zero. You're adding to the fire. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, the final piece. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to burn the meat. You're going to cut yourself. You're going to get it wrong. And that's fine. That's the process. The only real failure is not trying. Because if you don't try, you never get a second chance to adjust. You never get the meal. You stay hungry. So here's what I want you to do. Pick one thing you've been putting off. Something small. And do it today. Not perfectly. Just do it. Write that first page. Record that first video. Talk to that person. That's your fire. That's your cooking. And if you do that, you're not just learning a skill. You're becoming someone who learns. Someone who adapts. Someone who grows. Because that's what early humans were, not geniuses, not superheroes, but people who kept trying. And that's all you need to be. Keep trying. Keep burning. Keep cooking. And one day, you'll look back and realize you didn't just learn to cook. You learned how to live.